Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1, regular meeting is now in session. The time is 6 o'clock. We have all directors present. We will start with our citizens' presentations. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, whether or not it's posted on the agenda. The board is not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentations made to the board at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The board will hear presentations on specific agenda items prior to the board addressing those items. You may speak up to 3 minutes of the time limit determined by the president or the presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete the speaker's form that includes the topics of your statement. Topics of presentation should be limited to matters over which the board has authority. Presentation materials to be provided to the board or displayed in the meeting using district audio-visual equipment must be submitted in advance in accordance with District Order Number 2014-1204B. We have one person wishing to make a presentation. Mr. Rose, would you come up and state your name and address? It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Is that a master's jacket?
Unfortunately not. I didn't get the paycheck to go along with it. Before I start, this presentation is a little bit over 3 minutes. I added in responses to Director Hayes' questions from last meeting. And so I've got it timed down at right about 4 minutes. Kind of depend upon the pacing, but.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Great. Find that little spot down here. Okay. Bill Rose, 219 Inverness. This evening I'd like to address winter averaging's role in cost allocation by customer class and the impact on low volume sewer rates. This is the 12th consecutive month that winter averaging has been brought to your attention. I'll address Director Hayes' previous question on impact to low volume users at the end of the presentation. We have previously discussed having rates accurately reflect cost of service to each class of customer as a working goal. From the open records request, we know that the commercial's annual use of the wastewater treatment plant is 42%. Here's a fair and equitable distribution of sewer costs based on use. The most accurate method available to gauge residential use is winter averaging. Winter averaging increases the number of units in the residential equation and decreases the residential unit cost to $2.38. On April 25th, Director Thomas wrote, both residential and commercial sewage is considered domestic waste, and charging one class of customer, commercial, a higher volumetric rate to treat their waste versus a lower volumetric rate for another class, residential, to treat theirs is unacceptable to the PUC. Gentlemen, I contacted the PUC several months back, and I was informed that the mud doesn't fall under their jurisdiction. Go back one. No, it's fine. Director Thomas stated that different rates are acceptable. Well, here's Austin with different rates and Fort Worth with different rates. Then Director Thomas wrote to Danny Mayer and said, Bill's rationale is flawed, for he, and I suspect yourself, continue to compare our situation to large municipalities with significantly more commercial accounts than we have. So here is Burke Burnett, Richland Hills, Decatur, and Lake Worth with a population of about 4,600. Then I heard that the MUDs can't have a fair and equitable billing structure because you operate under different statutes than cities. So here is section 49.2122 of the Water Code applicable to all districts, stating a district may establish different charges based on any factor. Gentlemen, here is North Austin MUD 1 using winter averaging and different rates. Here's Sonterra MUD down by Houston, also using winter averaging and different rates. And North Solch MUD with different rates. Now moving on. Director Hayes asked me last month to address the impact of winter average on the low volume customer. This chart shows the annual volumetric cost for a resident processing 1,000 gallons of sewage per month. The left column is volume per month under an irrigation scenario. Looking at number 3 on the left column as an example, this is calculated as 1,000 gallons for 3 months and 3,000 gallons for 9 months for the annual use. That would be 1,000 gallons actual sewage plus the sewer charges of 2,000 gallons on lawn watering. You can very easily see that it's your low volume customer that's paying the greatest rate or greatest cost for processing sewage. This chart uses a similar scenario, only as for a person using or a resident using 2,000 gallons of sewage. 2 points in summary. There are no legal impediments to a fair and equitable sewer rate structure, and the lowest volume sewer user pays the highest volumetric cost for sewer service if they use outdoor water. Gentlemen, you say the low volume sewer user is a high priority for the MUD. Your words are hollow, and your actions, as well as your rate structure, indicate the exact opposite. It's time for the MUD to adopt winter averaging and correctly allocate costs between customer classes. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you next month.
Now we'll move on to our consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item 1, consider and take appropriate action to approve the consent agenda. A, April 2015 check register. B, April 7, 2015 special meeting minutes. April 21st, 2015 regular meeting minutes. D, April 28th, 2015 joint meeting minutes.
I move that we accept all 4.
I'd like one of them dropped off, the joint meeting. I mean, we can vote on it, but the reason being, I think there could be a little bit more information on the topic that we discussed, other than, discussion and no agenda. There were some things that were talked about as far as term lease and things of that nature.
Then if
That's okay.
there's no objection, I'll just say I make a motion to approve A, B, and C.
I second.
Okay,
I have one other, it's just a small item on I think it's the April 21st regular meeting minutes. There was a small typo there.
okay, okay,
So I'd like to have that removed.
okay. With the typo corrected, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll
Who
call.
seconded the motion? I'm sorry, Kevin did.
And I believe at this point, it's only for A and B because Neil also asked for C to be pulled off. So it,
Do you want to amend your motion?
Yes.
And I accept it.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Did we take that off or not?
Yeah,
Pam?
and then
Yeah,
Neil, if
it's
you'll
A
show the
and B.
typo on C, we can probably get that out of the way real quick, too.
Okay, so we're voting on A and B.
Correct.
All of those in favor? It is unanimous. We will now go to our regular session. Presentation of certificates to Citizens Fire Academy graduates.
Jim, don't you have to come back and look at C and D independent? They were removed from consent.
Well,
Don't we now
we
have
just-
to take action on them?
well, we weren't gonna take any action on them because there was a correction to be made, and also, Kevin wanted some additional information put onto it.
I'll get with Lori.
So I would assume we would put those
We
off.
could just do it
for
at a
next
later
time.
meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay, Pam?
Sure.
Yes.
Jennifer, presentation of certificates to Citizens Fire Academy graduates.
Okay, we're going to have, Mr. Sipes and Mr. Hurd are going to present our graduates with their certificates. I want to personally say thank you and congratulations to all of y'all that went through that. I know it was not easy, but we're very proud of you, and we'd like to get your photos as you go by and get your certificate, and then we'd like to get a photo of you together.
Just a little background, guys. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Citizens Fire Academy. I put this academy together 5 years ago, so this is the 5th academy that we have done. This year we've had 7 participants that completed it. Last year we had 22 complete. The year before that we only had 4. These citizens come out, they show an interest in the department, they come to a 10-week class, they meet once a week for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a night. They come out to learn a little bit about the administration and operations of the department. They get to have a little hands-on, see the gear, and see, just see what we offer to the community and how they can help us. The first one that I have is Richard Gregory.
Thank you, sir.
Connie White.
All right.
Carrie Nelson.
You didn't get injured in the academy, did you?
Rough training.
You want to announce everyone else's
I will.
names?
The remainder also completed the class, and for some reasons they were unable to make tonight. We had Allison Hoff, Charles Kroll, Leandra Kroll, and Andrew Novitsky.
Jim, can I ask, Jim,
Okay.
Jim, can I ask,
very much.
ask a question?
Thank you.
Can I ask a-
Thank you for doing a good job,
Captain
too.
Sides? Captain?
Yes.
Just real quick, you said it, but what is the time commitment when you run an academy that you have to put in?
10 weeks.
10 weeks, and how much time per week?
2 to 4 hours a class, one night a week.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to
Commander
see each
Sipes.
and every one of you in there.
We'll see Connie dragging a hose, right?
Thank you all very much.
Thank y'all for coming.
I never attended the fire academy, but I was in the first police academy group that they had, including the mayor at that time, and it was really quite an exciting experience, and I enjoyed all of it, particularly visiting the 911 call center in Denton, at which time a call came in for my house. Made it a very, very interesting. My dog had set off the fire alarm. Okay, enough time wasting. Item number 3, consider and take appropriate action regarding proposals received for annual financial auditing services. Award contract and authorize the general manager to execute the contract for services. Jennifer?
Okay, let me go to this. We received several, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we received 5 complete proposals from different auditors. And the way we scored this, we had staff do a scoring, and then we had the 2 members of the audit committee come in, and they also had copies of the proposals, and they did a score. Then we took an average of the scores overall to come up with the highest scored firm, which was La Follette and Abbott. That's our the auditor we've currently been using. And Rod Abbott is here tonight. It is the recommendation of the audit committee that we go with La Follette and Abbott.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion or any questions?
I wasn't on the audit team this year, but I've worked with Rod in past years, and I found it very, not, I guess, eye-opening and stuff, and he really carried out it very professionally, made everyone clear, and he helped us actually develop in-house projects, which I noticed on the financials, we were, what, like 5,000 or something under budget for this year's audit, is that right, Renee?
Yes, that's correct, but I think at the end of the year, we probably have to give you like a payment starting off or something that'll probably use the rest of that.
At the end of the budget year,
Yeah.
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 But, I mean, I appreciate it.
Would you like to make a motion then, perhaps?
I'll make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation at La Follette and Abbott for the audit team.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like just to add that the staff, Jim Hayes and myself, when we were reviewing this, we really didn't get any guidance regarding how to score the points, but it's noticeable that all of us scored your firm as being the highest out of all the candidates. So it's, again, another credit to your presentation and the way and the work that you guys have done. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Action speaks louder than words. That's the kind of philosophy we try to build on. You're not a small fish in a big pond to us, so we try to treat you as such, so.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the vote.
Jim,
All those in favor?
I do have a
Yep.
question. Kevin, the proposed rate for 2015 is 22,500. Should your motion state that?
Sure. I'll amend it to that.
And should you also allow for the MUD general manager to execute it?
You want to do that too? That's fine with me.
Hey, he's easy tonight.
You need a second to that, Jim.
Okay. Neil, you
Agree.
second, you agree to the changes? Okay. We have amended motion and second, all agreed to. All of those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Consider and take appropriate action to approve proposal from the Wallace Group for inspection services during wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. Is this yours, Jennifer?
Yes. You all recall, I believe it was last month or month before, the Wallace Group was here when we accepted the bids, and we talked about possibly making a budget for on-site inspections. And he had stated he would send us a proposal for that. What he submitted here is a time estimate of, this is just an estimated amount if you wanted to do for 2 full days a week for the entire 9-month period. Our suggestion is that if the board wants to have inspection services, I think it's important, at least through the first part of this, of the project, that we have some on-site inspection through the engineering firm. So we could make a budget of up to some amount. It will only be used when we need it. There's going to be weeks where nothing really is going on, that we don't really need them out there. The staff themselves can take care of it. But there's also going to be other times where there's very important tasks going on, like what we talked about, the pouring of the concrete, those sorts of things. You would want to have an engineering inspector or the appropriate type of inspector on site. So this is a suggested amount. You all can make it any budget you want it to be, a not to exceed. We will only use the inspectors when we need them, or you may choose that you don't want to have on-site inspection at all. So,
Comments? I would make the comment that I think we need to have some money provided for this. We're talking about a gigantic expenditure. I think the little bit of money that they talked about for oversight to make sure that everything's done correctly, I would like to see us do that with the general manager having the discretion to decide which days and when and during what processes that we need somebody. Other comments?
Yeah, if I read this right, Jennifer, they're recommending we do this predominantly doing phase 1, doing the pouring of the concrete.
yes, do phase 1, yes.
And it's 92.5 is the amount we're looking at.
Up to, yeah.
That was
Yes,
if you
up
did-
to 92,800. That would be for 2 days at 8 hours a day for the entire project.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what-
sorry, for the entire first phase.
That includes breakfast and lunch.
I don't think it does, so.
make a motion that we accept the approved proposal from the Wallace Group for inspection services for the water treatment plant upgrade project, not to exceed $92,800, and to be spent at the discretion of the general manager.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? If there is none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 5, consider and take appropriate action regarding proposals received for sludge hauling services, award contract, and authorize a general manager to execute contract for services. I think we've all seen the backup on this, but is there any discussion? And if no discussion, do we have a motion?
I'm motioned out.
Then I'll make the motion that we approve item 5 on the agenda regarding the sludge hauling services and awarding the contract, and authorize the general manager to execute the contract for those services.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just one. Jennifer, you had several bids, did you not?
No, for the sludge hauling, we only received one proposal, and that was from Cheney.
But we did bid it though, and you only got one response.
Yes, we advertised, we sent it out to numerous different sludge haulers. We just didn't get a good response this time. I think last year when we did this, we got 2 responses. We got from Cheney and Republic, and this year we only got 1.
You think our volumes maybe have something to do with that, because there's not much there?
The volume has something to do with it, but also the class of sludge has something to do with it. Most of the time, people bid on something when they think they can make a profit on it. We had a Class A sludge, and we sell it as fertilizer, and I'm sure that people were looking for that, instead of just taking it to a landfill. That's why we didn't get many bids.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 6, consider and take appropriate action to approve non-standard water and wastewater agreement with BDMR Development, LLC, for the development known as Canterbury Hills, Phase 3, consisting of 51 lots and 51 living unit equivalents. Jennifer?
This is just another development that's underway, and they have submitted their inspection fees and their non-standard service agreement, and they're ready for board approval. Everything meets our requirements.
And I'll make the motion that we approve this non-standard wastewater agreement with BDMR Development, LLC, for the development known as Canterbury Hills Phase 3, for the 51 lots and the 51 living unit equivalents.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 7, consider and take appropriate action to approve non-standard water and wastewater agreement with BDMR Development, LLC, for the development known as Water's Edge at Hogan's Glen, Phase 3, consisting of 22 lots and 22 living unit equivalents.
On this one, there is a change in the agenda. I talked with Steve Leonard today, and they did not include in the living unit equivalents. They may need 3 additional meters for common areas that they are going to irrigate. And so it is 22 lots, but that needs to be changed to 25 living unit equivalents. They may or may not need those 3 additional meters. They aren't sure yet, but I told him it was best for us to approve it with more, and if he doesn't need as many, that's fine, but it would have to come back to y'all if it's not enough. So that needs to be changed to 25 LUEs.
I make a motion to approve the non-standard water and wastewater agreement with BDMR Development, LLC, for the development known as Water's Edge at Hogan's Glen, Phase 3, consisting of 22 lots and not to exceed 25 living unit equivalents.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 8, consider and take appropriate action regarding termination of oil and gas mining lease by Vantage Fort Worth Energy LLC, formerly Encana Oil and Gas USA Incorporated.
In your packet, you have the letter that we received from Vantage Fort Worth. All of the wells have been capped, and they are just giving us notice of termination. I do want to point out that we were not able to locate a copy of the agreement. It was from many, many years ago. We were able to find where it was a mutual agreement between the board and Encana to file at the county, instead of a copy of the actual lease, to file a memorandum that you mutually agreed not to file the lease, but that there is a lease. So since the gas wells are capped, I don't know that really the lease would say anything different than if they want to terminate it, they can.
So there's nothing that we have to do to make sure that they're capped properly or anything like that? There's no leakage?
No.
So we just have to accept the termination?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the termination of oil and gas mining lease by Vantage Fort Worth Energy LLC, formerly Encana Oil and Gas USA Inc.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion.
I do, I know there's no income on this, and it probably only pertains to property where their lines cross into mud areas. But I do feel uncomfortable not having the agreement or knowing what the reference is. And I would rather, I don't mind voting for this with the condition that we get a copy of the agreement, the original agreement from Vantage Energy, so we'd make sure there's nothing there that we're, obligated or something else. We're agreeing to a section in agreement that we don't have in this 20.B. It may be nothing, but I would like to, what I would like to do is amend the motion that we will agree to terminate once we receive the copy and it's reviewed, just to be safe, okay?
I accept.
I'm
You
okay
agree to
with
that? Okay. Any other discussions? If not, Jennifer, I think you understand the way it was done.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Consider and take appropriate action to adopt order number 2015-0519, establishing rules and penalties relating to interfering with district meters, lines, or other properties. Jennifer?
This was actually a request of legal. If you recall, I believe it was back in December, the board approved an order establishing rules and penalties for interfering with district meters, lines, or other properties. And that was drafted by Bob West. After Pam looked at it and they discussed it, they decided there was a few things that they felt like needed to be tweaked in there. And so we've revised it, and it is Pam's recommendation that the board approve this order as it's written.
We have discussion from anyone.
Just out of curiosity, what was revised?
What was tweaked?
The previous order had language as if it would be prosecuted in a criminal prosecution. It said things like found guilty and offense and those type of words. And this is a civil penalties, not a criminal penalties ordinance. So I took out the language that reflects criminal prosecution and replaced it with the language that reflects a civil prosecution for a civil liability.
And I'd like to make the motion that we approve order 2015-0519, establish rules and penalties for relating to the interfering of the district meters, lines, and other properties.
I'll second, but I have another question.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah, on the effective date, it says in accordance with 54.207 Water Code shall become effective on the 5th day following said publications.
Yes, we have to advertise it in the newspaper on 2 occasions, and we did the last one, so it's in effect, but 6 days after this one's publicized, it will be in effect, and it will override that one.
That's fine.
Any further discussion? We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It
Aye.
is unanimous.
Moving right along.
Consider and take appropriate action regarding fire department personnel budget as requested by the town of Trophy Club. Discussion.
It's a town. They made an error, I guess, and
Jennifer, can you summarize this?
Yes, there were two issues that we're trying to correct here. One is there were two fire department employees that were hired in back in one was hired in 2013 and one in 2014. And they were, I guess, put into the town system at an incorrect minimum pay for their position. And the town agreed to fund all of the back pay up into the period that ended April 24th. And they're requesting that we fund that difference. The total additional cost from April 24th to the end of the fiscal year for those two employees will be $922. So it wasn't very significant. The other issue was that 3 fire department employees were entered into the town payroll system at the wrong split. At one time, there was a different split. It was like 49-51. And those 3 employees were either entered in or it wasn't changed, or something happened in the software that it reverted back to the old difference. And so this went back to 2013 that there was a difference. September 2013, there was a difference in those percentages. So we did a reconciliation with the town, and they owe us a difference of $1,690.50. So you can see that will offset what was in the first issue, the $922. So we have the money in the budget, or we will have the funds to do that. But this changes the line items amounts that have been approved by the board in the budget. That's why it's brought to you to approve.
But it'll have a credit of $1690.50 coming back, won't it?
Yep.
In the salary, so there'll be a plus. The difference of the.
It won't be a credit in the salaries. They'll reimburse us, or they'll take it off of probably a whole payroll, right? Or have they done that yet, Renee?
No, they haven't done that yet. If they write us a check, I would say we would put it back where we were overcharged to begin with, whether salaries, the taxes that go along with that, because there's a lot of it's not just salaries, it's the
It's the
payroll
benefits.
taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
the whole
Things,
9 yards.
you know, the unemployment, all of those taxes were overcharged.
So it'd be
Overcharged to us, for a total of $1690.
Right, we
And then
we
we're paying
reimbursed
for
too much.
Yeah, then we're paying for a mistake of $922 that the town HR or somebody made.
Ebony, both of these amounts include the totals, benefits, salaries, everything.
Right.
Yes.
Do these include certifications too? And longevity? Well, obviously none of them would be longevity.
It did not include longevity because
None of them would have longevity.
well, no, they did have longevity, but we had them exclude that in the, we had them include it in the 2013 pay for the issue number 1, the 2 people, I'm sorry, no, for the second issue where it was offset, it was the wrong split. We did have them include it in 2013 because we participated, but in 2014, we did not participate. So that was excluded from those amounts.
The 50-50 split you're talking about, I think there was only 1 year that was when we built the fire station, or around that time frame, it was 5149 for a reason. And then the 50-50 is per, I think, Exhibit 8, is that right? Exhibit 8 of the contract?
Exhibit A.
A?
And that's, I mean, it was the 49.51% up until the start of fiscal year 2014. Since I came here in 2012 and it was the 49.51, and then it was the start of fiscal year 14 that it switched to the 50/50.
Okay.
Well, I'll make the motion that we agree to the staff report regarding basically remitting to the town the extra $922 and also receiving from the town $1,690.50 for the 3 fire department employees in the second item.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the motion. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item number 11, consider and take appropriate action regarding purchase and installation of generators with automatic switchover capabilities at district lift stations. I believe, though, that cost was included in our packet, around $70,000.
Yeah, I sent that out later. We only got the quote. I guess it was yesterday or day before yesterday. I'll take one. And this is just a quote, and of course it depends on whenever you bid anything. There's cost savings in bulk, I guess. So if you were doing more than one lift station at a time, you might save some money on the installation. So keep in mind that this is just a quote. I would say that in my career, anytime we've installed a generator at a lift station, it's been somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 per lift station. So I felt like this was a pretty good quote that we got. The installation itself is fairly complicated, and so it's expensive for the labor to do that. Mr. Thomas had asked that we look at this, and I'll let him speak for himself, but what he explained to me was he thought this might be something that you all want to consider in a long-term capital improvement project or plan of trying to do a lift station every whatever, or 2 lift stations. I think in his mind, and I'll again let him speak for himself, but he did say, if it's not too much, and I told him at that time, I think it's going to be costly because it's just very expensive. But the purpose of this is when there are power outages, we do not have power at the lift stations other than lift station number 1. So that requires manual employees. We have 1 portable generator that I believe actually belongs to the town, and we have to go to lift station and pump those lift stations down when the power's out. And since I've been here, there hasn't been a very long period of a power outage, but from where I come from on the coast, these are required at all lift stations. It's a TCEQ requirement if you're within so many miles of the Gulf of Mexico, because there are so many long-term power outages during hurricanes and that sort of tropical storms. So it is a requirement that you have generators at all lift stations with automatic switchovers. Okay, so I've said I would let Jim talk, so now I'll let him. I'm sorry, Jim.
Well, look, where this came from was when we had the recent power outage, the guys just did a marvelous job of keeping things flowing, but they were literally, these guys can tell you, they were literally bouncing from lift pump to lift pump to lift pump, because you move it from one down to the other, and you got to go to the other and move it down and move it down. And if we ever did have a big, lengthy power outage, that would just almost become an impossible task. We got one generator, and you just have to flow through, what, eight stations, 9 stations? 10 stations, back and back and back and back. And so it dawned on me that I thought we ought to talk about this as a long-term capital improvement project, not that we do all 10 of them at one time because they're expensive. But I thought maybe we ought to think about it. And I did not see in here, do you have to come out and crank these things manually, or can you remotely start these things?
They,
I did just-
the
I don't
way
know
that
if-
we got the quote is that they're on an automatic switchover, and if the power goes out, it will automatically switch
over.
over to the generator, like our building here does,
Well,
and
you
the
know,
water plant and the wastewater plant.
when you just, when you have a power outage, you generally will have less movement. I mean, people are just, you stay at home. I mean, you flush the toilet more. You just do more. And when I saw what they had to do this last time on a short outage, it just struck me that I thought we ought to consider this and talk about it.
Well, Jim, I think it's a good idea that as we are revamping the lift station, that this be considered in the future, but it's not on the agenda, but it also sounds like might be a good idea to have another portable generator.
I was gonna ask, what's a portable generator like the town has? What's the cost on that?
It would probably be, I'm gonna say, what, they're calling for a 125? Yeah, I'd say probably about 35 or 40,000.
Can you run two of them simultaneously, multiple stations? Do you have the crew to do that?
Yeah, and I mean, if you have more than one portable pump, you can certainly be pumping more than one down at a time. And we do have one lift station that already is set that way. That's lift station number 1. It has a on-site automatic switchover generator.
But are we talking more for a generator or a generator pumping? I mean, when you bring the portable generator, do you just plug it into the station, or are you actually using it to pump the lift station?
The first year that I came to work here, I put into the first budget for what they call quick connects at all the lift stations, and we had those installed. Some already had them, and I think there was still, do you remember, was it like 6 or 7, I think, that didn't have the quick connects? Yeah. And so I put that in the budget, and I do want to say that I had this vision in my mind many, many years ago that a quick connect was like this giant plug that you like plug into the wall. And so my first experience to see how quick connect it was, it's not very quick, okay? It is still doing some wiring and things to get those put together, but our lift stations do now have those quick connects that you can hook the generator to. So it's not as difficult as it would be without them.
Well, I agree with Director Jim Thomas that, in the future, as we address, a lift station where we're modernizing it or doing anything, that we consider this. But at the same time, I'd like to maybe have the general manager look into purchasing another portable generator, because just to have one, backups are always nice. And for future, I'll also mention that future agenda when we get to it.
If we get something back that tells how many times we've lost power, I know there's certain areas that lose power more than others. The last one, it was pretty much the whole town. But if we could get a history of maybe the past 3 years or something like that.
I can check.
The Encore or something could give you that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I can check with the electric company. They can, when you're designing lift stations, you have to actually include the longest outage in the last 5 years or something like that to design the size of the wet well itself. And that is where engineers get that information, is from the electric company. So I may get Kevin to get that information for us. It will be, usually it's general of the area. It won't be, lift station by lift station, but they should be able to give us something for this area in general.
So you're going, you're going to look into quoted cost by a portable generator. Is that what the current proposal is? Because what I would like to say is, let's don't make a decision on this until we see the budget for next year.
Sure. And so, yes, I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to look at getting us a quote for a portable generator to look at including in next year's budget. We have this quote, so if there's not a significant difference, which there will be with the switchover, but, or we may want to, include this in the capital projects too, but we'll look at all of this when we're budgeting. But I will get a quote together on a portable generator for our budgeting.
Yeah, I know, I mean, it's not it hadn't really been a big hurricane in years, but both the gyms, I think you might remember too.
I
Everybody
think
might-
September 13th,
Well, I'm just
2008 was
saying,
the last
we
big
bought that
hurricane.
generator at the treatment plant, and we got it for a steal. I mean, it was like brand new and sitting on the roof or something somewhere. So, I mean, possibly we could get something like that and cut the cost down some.
And within
They use-
days, literally within days
Yeah.
of getting it, we lost power.
Yeah, it was
Everything-
not even a
everything
week.
paid for itself almost immediately.
Yeah.
Pam, this is does this require a motion? It's simply to look at some possibilities and consider the cost and so forth at a future date, so. I
You're
don't-
just contemplating bringing it back to them, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
so you've gotten what you need from the
Yeah,
discussion. Yes.
we'll just put that as direction.
Okay, all right, fine. So there's no action taken on that particular item at this point in time. We will develop information, bring it back for the board for future consideration. Probably, my guess is that we would certainly buy one more portable generator, if nothing else at that time. But we'll just have to see what it looks like when it comes back.
Well, and we'll also have time, Jim, for Jennifer to look at a long-range plan and talk to us about what a long-range plan might look like.
Yes, sir. Okay, item 12, discussion regarding current debt service schedules for tax bonds and revenue bonds and funding of revenue bond reserve over a 5-year period as required by bond covenant. Tell me what that means, Jennifer.
Neil asked that I put this on the agenda so that you all can just kind of see what the current debt service looks like for both the new tax bonds, our new revenue bonds, and I included in here the combined, just the overall debt service rates for all of the bonds. And then also what we're going to do, or rather what I should say is what we are doing to fund the bond reserve. If you recall, back, maybe that was January, December or January, when we closed, after we closed on the revenue bonds, I did a little presentation and it went through some of the bond covenants that are required. And with the revenue bonds, different from tax bonds, we have a bond covenant that we have to fund 1 year's debt service into a debt service reserve fund, and we have 5 years to do so. So that if you break and that has to be based on the average debt service amount. So we average all the annual debt service, and we come up with the amount, and we divide that by 12 months, 5 years, and we come up with, it was $10,278 per month. We've already started doing that. We were required to start funding that in March of 15. So when we amended the budget, we actually included an amount in there for the rest of this fiscal year. So it will be March of 2019, I guess, when we finish, or I'm sorry, 2020, 5 years. So March of 2020, we will complete that funding of that. You can add additional over time. You don't have to take 5 years. So if we find a big windfall of money one year, we might want to move ahead on funding that a little faster. But that is just budgeted, and that's part of our annual budget now. Will be an additional $120,000 a year until we get 1 year's annual average debt service in a special account that cannot be spent, it cannot be touched until the bonds are paid off.
Okay, questions?
Obviously, that discussion was for Jim Hayes and Neil. We could have left for a few minutes.
That's true, I didn't even need to be here, but
Uh,
questions by anybody?
Well, the other question would be on staff. I understand some preliminary evaluations have come out. Have you looked at or estimated already what the impact of the new tax debt service will be? Not the revenue, but the tax?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
What have you seen in valuation so far? Anything?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to answer that.
Okay, maybe at our next meeting, well, we're gonna be coming closer to the budget anyways, but to get some idea where it may come in, because I think we're going from, I think I had 700, you have it right here, 723, and we're going up to slightly over 1 million. So it's a little over 300 and, well, it'd be 275, something like that, $1,000 increase. So that's at 1.1 billion, where we are, we're still at least talking about maybe a 2-cent tax increase. So-
Did you, excuse me,
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you, Jim.
did you, this utility fund, I assume that's the revenue bond set into a different fund? A co-
It has to be complete. We set up separate funds for that.
Okay. And tax bonds are
Renee?
all combined into one fund, right? The INS fund, or whatever you call it nowadays.
Yes, we had to set up a reserve fund, a INS fund for the bond, the revenue bonds, a construction account, and then we also have a tax bond construction account for the wastewater plant.
What's the tax
The
fund
five,
about?
the 5,765,000, the bond,
Okay.
tax bond we did in
Right.
December.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
If not, we'll move on to the next item. Consider and take appropriate action regarding scheduling of future joint meetings with the Town of Trophy Club.
At this time, I don't think there's anything to discuss, is there?
I wanted to make one recommendation. Our past joint meetings have been seriously limited by the time that we had in order to try to do anything. I would like to propose to the town, Jennifer, if everybody agrees, that our next joint meeting be on a separate night from either one of our regular meetings. The last meeting was absolutely, in my opinion, a total waste of time. We didn't get anything done. And I don't think we're ever going to when we try to have 50-minute joint meetings. We have too many people there with too many opinions, right, Bill? To try to get anything done in 50 minutes. So I'm making that as a suggestion. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about it. You certainly can express your opinion.
I 100% agree. I mean, you're trying to, accomplish something and you're really not doing it justice. You're not, getting the discussion that's needed on some of these topics. So I agree that it should be a separate meeting and not be time limited.
I totally agree, Jim, in that, it's interesting, I've seen us in the past only put a smidget of what needed to be talked about on the agenda because we said, we won't get it done in 55 minutes to an hour. Well, this time we actually had quite a few things to talk about and didn't even get past the first one, so I really think it's a good idea.
I mean, sometimes what you think would be a no-brainer turns into
Yeah.
2 or 3 hours, so,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a motion from this board would be good from the standpoint that it takes both of us, the town and the mud, to agree to this separate night. And let's get our part of it done by making a motion, and
Would you like to make the motion?
I make the motion that next joint meeting and those thereafter be on a separate night from either the MUD regular month meeting or the town's bi-monthly meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Who seconded?
If no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
can we direct the general manager to
Yes.
notify the town manager of that?
Yes, that would be our request, Jennifer.
Okay.
consider and take appropriate action regarding April 2015 financials. A, combined financials. B, variance report.
And then fire department variance report. There's two variance reports this time.
Okay, I only see three, okay.
Yeah, it's attachments are two, but
I
there's.
got you, okay.
I looked over them. I talked to Renee today. Actually found something. Yeah. It was $1, but it's still something, you know. But I had a question regarding the fire budget. I don't know if you can answer it, Donnie. But we've talked about the protective equipment until we're blue in the face, and I'm looking at it, and it got amended, but there's no expenditures. First off, is there equipment that can be recertified or repaired or brought back in, or do we have to buy new equipment? And do we have any equipment that's out of service for repairs that need to be repaired?
We have ordered the gear that was amended in the amended budget. We did have 5 sets come in Friday in the UPS, and we did issue those 5 sets of gear. We're waiting for the bill to come in so that I can submit to Renee. We have a lot of gear that's out of service, but it's met the shelf life that NFPA allows us to wear that gear. So it's not we can't do anything with it other than use it for training, like Citizens Fire Academy. We have a couple of sets that has just a few months of life left on it. It's not worth doing anything to it because the expenditure to repair the gear to get it to standard would be extremely more than what the gear's worth because its life is only good for a couple more months.
Okay, so like you, how many pieces of gear do you have? Just one?
I have 1 set of gear, yes, sir. We had some gear that was expired that we've replaced, and now everybody is wearing current standard gear. And then we have ordered 7 sets of gear, which was what when the budget amendment was made, and we've ordered that, which will give 7 spare sets of gear, and that we can use in a rotation basis if somebody's gear gets dirty and we wash gear or we send it out for testing, cleaning, or repairs. What we've done is that we've looked at everybody's sizes, and that we have 7 same size people out of everybody in the department is what ended up occurred, where the number 7 come from.
And then when you said out of service, on the hoses and things like that, that would be in another category as far as equipment, or?
Yes, sir.
And then how much of that do we have out of service?
I don't oversee hose. Captain Sipes oversees
Like
hose.
equipment, hoses, whatever.
It would be very, very minimal if we have anything out of equipment. We have maybe a couple of sections of hose that is out of service that we use for training that they drag and tear up and use for physical training, PT. We have a saw that's broke. The case is cracked on it, and we're getting an estimate for repair to fix the case on the saw. There's just a couple of people that's local, and one of the guys really kind of didn't want to work on it, so we're just having to look at some other avenues and resources. We have very minimal stuff that's just broke down there.
Donnie, he reminded me of a question I'd like to ask you. I was reviewing checks and signing last night, and I saw that 3 people had their uniforms annual inspected, so kudos for that. But how were you able to do that if we don't have the extras yet? I was just curious when I was signing the checks.
Excuse me. We had an employee that left. Jacob Farrell resigned 4 months ago to Rockwall. He had a set of gear that was approximately a year old or a little bit less, and so we used that gear in the rotation to get a guy that it fit or was maybe just a little bit large. And then we had several guys that had some extended vacation time, and I sent that gear out while they were gone, just because it's, you're going to be gone for a week or 8 days, and then I can ship it out and I can get it cleaned and I can get it back until that other gear starting to come in.
And how long did it take, out of curiosity, for
The
the,
first round was 2 days. The last round, because of all the bad weather, it took 5.
Okay.
But I spoke to the company, and that if that's going to be an issue to get it back in a timely manner for the delivery, for them to deliver it, that I would come get it because I can't have it gone that long.
okay.
And we've set up a rotation with them that they're gonna, if we set up a schedule and that they come and pick up X number of sets of gear, then they guarantee they'll have it back to us in 48 hours.
And all the gear is stored in one room.
Yes, sir. We store it we have the bunker gear room that's just to the left of the ambulance, and it's a climate-controlled environment.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, climate control. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the April 2015 financials to include combined financials and the variance reports.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Reports and updates. Update from board committees. A, Rate Study Committee. B, Fire EMS Consolidation Committee. C, Annex Building Lease Committee. Item A, Rate Study Committee.
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Jennifer was kind in setting up a meeting a few days back for her staff and Jim Hayes and I, Jim and I being on the rate study committee. And it was a true education for me. Jim will have to speak for himself, but to understand the absolute complexity and the kind of things you have to consider. Prior to that meeting, just from my own education, I did call the PUC. The TCEQ has transferred any rate complaints, if you will,
Keep going.
to the PUC now. The PUC does handle those if there's any rate challenges in the future. And also kind of wanted to understand from the PUC what kind of challenges do they get and what do they look for when they get a challenge. And you know, fair and reasonable is a word that's used quite often. But the thing that Jim and I realized before, this little guy right here is kind of the Bible. You know, this is the one this is produced by American Water Works Association. It's about everything you ever wanted to know about rates for both water and sewer, and it is extremely complex as to what you can do. Well, net of this is after spending quite a bit of time, a couple hours on this, the committee is going to be working on 3 different approaches, you know, to rates. Bill, by the way, is very accurate in something he said earlier. According to PUC, you can, as long as it's done properly, you can have different rate structures for different classes. You can charge commercial more or less than you do residential. You can have different amounts. So we're going to be looking at 3 different approaches. If you recall, back when we hired the Stowe Group to do the initial work, we asked them to present us with, it's a 5-year plan, Jennifer?
Yes, to project rates over a 5-year period, yes.
So what they did is they looked at the cost, including the bonds that we had, you know, have now sold, the revenue bonds. They looked at that in advance. And their study looks out, knowing that the costs are going to go up, then that means you're going to have to collect revenue, which means you may have to take rates up, but you've got to look at it to see. So we've got their plan in place. So we're going to take that plan. We are going to take winter averaging. We're going to look at winter averaging over the same length of time. And then we're going to look at, let's take the caps off. Let's don't have any caps. If you use water, you pay for sewer, just like commercial does. And we'll take a look at what that does. And through these 3 things, and by the way, I went through all 3 of these with the PUC, and all 3 of them are valid approaches that communities take. So when we get through with this, we'll be bringing back to the full board kind of our findings and results for the workshop that Jennifer's got planned for us.
I have a question on something that you mentioned, and Jim Hayes and I sat in with the Stowe Group. It's been, a couple months there, Jim? And we asked about that commercial rate, and what the explanation we were told as far as the different rates, you can charge them different rates, but it's for reasons of you're doing additional service because of the chemicals that are coming out of a commercial plant or commercial business. Is that what you remember, Jim?
That's what we were told, and,
Yeah.
and I think Jennifer told us that in our meeting.
Yes, you can base your rates on what we call the strength of the waste stream. Some commercial has a much higher BOD, some have higher TSS, some have both higher BOD and TSS. And I'm going to kind of revert back to my old City of Houston days. We had every commercial or industry was required to have a sampling port at their effluent, and they were on a sampling schedule where we collected either composite samples over time, we collected grab samples. Different types of commercial and industry require different types of samples, and those were averaged and looked at through the year. And some groups, for example, restaurants, most had very high grease, so we had an average. We didn't sample every restaurant in Houston. That would be impossible. But we had a higher rate for restaurants because they have a higher waste stream, a strength in their waste stream. And so that is a method of setting sewer rates that you certainly can do. You can base it for, if you want to have commercial considered a different class as far as the waste stream. It is based on the strength of it for BOD and TSS. So you will see a lot of big cities and even small cities that do that because it does cost you more. And I want to kind of add that what our model is based on is a cost of service. And we don't have those, large types of industries or commercial that we expect anything more than restrooms coming out of. So, and we don't have sampling ports. We don't have those things in order to look at their waste stream separate. It's basically just domestic waste. It's office buildings, and we do have a few small restaurants, but they have grease traps, and I don't think that they have high strength waste. So that's why our commercial is the same. It costs us the same to serve them. It costs us the same to treat that waste as it does domestic waste.
Yeah, I just want to bring that up because some of the cities on the slides that was presented are big cities, and I'm sure a couple of names I didn't recognize, but I'd like to know what type of commercial businesses are in those cities, and if they do fall in that category where the strength of their waste justifies a different stream.
And Kevin, I will tell you, the lady I talked to, I can't remember Heidi's last name, but she's in that department, and she's the person that deals with challenges when they hit the PUC. And the very first thing she said to me was, is there a difference in the strength of the sewage you're getting from your commercial and residential accounts? And I said, in our case, no. We don't believe that there's any difference. And she said, well then, you just got to make sure that you're treating with fair and equitable. She said, what you normally do is like you just said, Kevin, is when you have different strengths, you absolutely charge different amounts because it costs you more. She said, everything's built on cost. It costs you more to treat higher strength. And so in our case, I don't know if we've tested the hospital, Jennifer, but I think we pretty much think that the sewage coming from our commercial accounts doesn't exceed the problems we have with our residential accounts, does it?
No, we don't expect anything different. And keep in mind that in order to do that, you really need to have a pretreatment program. That's a huge cost. The commercial will have to install a sampling port on their effluent. It's basically a mini manhole where you collect samples. So there's a lot of costs associated with doing sampling of waste streams. And we don't do that in Trophy Club.
Okay, there was a question, Bill Rose was asked, you want to comment on your...
If I could, mention the slides. First of all, for Director Thomas, thank you for getting back with the PUC. Like I said, it had been a couple of months ago when I talked with them, and they were bouncing around between TCEQ and PUC, both of them saying, it's not me.
That decision is now made.
Good, I'm glad to see they're picking up. The difference, I think the one slide that I had that brought out the difference in the testing, BOD and CPOD and all of that, I think is Fort Worth. What they have and what I found in the research I've done, most cities, towns, or entities only have a residential and a commercial. Now, they tie the apartments in two different places. Some of them tie with the residential, some of them tie with commercial. But they're basically treating a similar waste stream. Now, in Fort Worth, that's where, and I'm sure there are other cities that do that, where they get into the testing. And in Fort Worth, they label that, I think, as industrial rather than commercial. But it's either commercial with a test. I think Fort Worth calls it commercial with a test and commercial without a test. And they have a different rate. The base rate, I'm going to draw from memory here, the base rate for commercial no test is higher than the base rate for a commercial with test, but when you do the commercial with the test, then you get all of the additives for the other things that they're measuring. So you wind up, I think, paying a greater rate to process it.
In Houston, we also had different base rates, and it was based on a good example that comes to mind is at the airports, the airlines had ice makers and things and they did not discharge, but the ice, the water that they use for ice, but they had an effluent meter. And there's a definite, they're larger than just a small home effluent meter. So certainly the base rate would be different because it costs you more. It's a higher cost of service to maintain those larger effluent meters. Again, we don't have effluent meters, so for either residential or commercial. So there's really no difference in the cost to serve. I guess kind of the overall model that we had the company put together for us is a cost of service model. And they looked at the actual cost to serve commercial versus residential. And the model indicated that there really isn't a difference as far as what it costs us to serve them. Yeah. And so that was the model. Jim had the book down there, and there's all kinds of different methods that you can use. It was the board's decision when we had this model put together to use a cost of service. That is right now the most popular, as my grandfather used to say, the fad, is to use a cost of service model, although there are other models you can use.
Basically, in a lot of ways, not talking about what the cost of your operation is when you get into what the winter averaging I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the cost of your operation. That's what it is. It's just how you bill it, ultimately.
Bill, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And this is just a committee report.
I understand.
We are going to discuss this in detail. We've talked about perhaps a workshop for this specific thing in which we will cover every aspect of it possibly from our standpoint that we possibly can to come up with the best answers. But as of today, we're just having a committee report,
I
and we don't want to go too much into
I understand, and I appreciate that. And perhaps I might get the opportunity to touch bases with the gentleman on the committee.
Anytime you want to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Jim, I tell you, one last thing.
Sure.
Again, all of this stuff will be brought back in a lot of detail, but there were some things that jumped out that just shocked me. We have a home in Trophy Club whose winter average is 47,000 gallons a month. A home. Winter
Really?
average numbers, 47,000 gallons. When you look at when you look at some of the winter averaging, it was really interesting. It is amazing. It is amazing how many homes are over 20,000 gallons, and we got them capped at 18. It is amazing how many are over 20. It's also amazing it's over 100 use
You
zero.
said you weren't going to bring up my house and stuff.
But there's over 100 accounts, Kevin, that in the winter use zero.
Actually, I thought Director Thomas was talking about his own.
And Jim, I do want to point out that high user has actually reduced it significantly because the last time we did the winter averaging on last year's, it was like 63,000. So he and she have actually reduced that significantly over
Bring
the
their swimming
last
pool
year.
every 3 days.
Okay, is there any further comments on this report? Director Hayes, did you have any other?
No, they covered it.
Okay. Let's move on to the Fire EMS Consolidation Committee report.
Well, Kevin's the chair, but let me jump in on the financials. We pretty much have worked out all the numbers, and there's a memo sitting in front of you, and this is based on the draft model. I think at our next meeting, we'll be finalizing the model. But basically, we looked at 3 scenarios. First one, the town would take over the fire department. The second scenario is the MUD would take over the EMS services. And the third was basically do nothing. And on the first one, basically, if the town was to take over the fire because of their tax base, it would mean 8.5 cents increase in the town tax rate, which on the average over the next 10 years. And at the same time, that is 3.8 cents higher than what we would be paying on the MUD.
Is that because of the loss of Solana?
Well, they don't have Solana, so.
That's what I mean,
yeah,
because of the loss of Solana.
Pretty much it. Solana, on the model, basically would, in the out years, would account for almost 30%, a little more than 30% of the MUD's tax base. Okay. Also, the numbers of what the accumulated cost of that would be is included in the model. On this memo, we also, on option 2, if the town, wanted us to take over EMS and we wanted to take it, basically, it would reduce the average town tax rate by 2.3 cents and over what the MUD's cost would be. So basically, it would be $1.8 million on the first 5 years in savings to the town. And of course, I put in the 5 years and 10 years and 20 years savings. So it's pretty much right now, I think this, I'll let Kevin kind of pick it up from here. The sense of the committee right now is we're not going to make any recommendations on scenario 1 or 2 as far as, but we do think that there is some room for us to talk about in scenario 3. So Kevin?
Yeah, the scenario 3, as Neil mentioned, is status quo with some improvements on the operational control, rather than having a person report to 2 entities, have them report to 1. We've had both situations years ago. The town would control the operation. We would have the budget, yay or nay on it, and input on that. Neil went over the financial numbers. Some committee members, they aren't really concerned with the savings one way or another. They're just concerned with the operation side of it. So we're going to put together a summary of our findings, and at our last meeting, I think it's June 16th or 18th?
Yeah, we're meeting just before the MUD meeting.
Yeah, what day did you reserve it for?
I believe it was June the 16th is the day of
16th.
our June meeting.
Right, we're going to meet before the MUD board meeting at 5 o'clock, and we're going to go over the summary of our findings and then present it to each board. And what we do at that time, anyone knows. So that's the fire and EMS side. The lease of the annex, obviously we had the joint meeting and so much was accomplished. It's speechless. I think at this point, we're just, in a holding pattern, and we aren't even planning to meet anymore, because initially we were told by the town that they were going to use the annex for business purposes. We met with the 2 committee members. We thought we're in agreement based on that need. We spent MUD legal fees, at the request of the town, to come up with a lease agreement, and it was basically chopped apart. They want to use it as a community meeting room. At least that's what the word was at the joint committee. At the last council meeting, I understand that they, are concerned about the parking, which we were concerned with initially. Right. And that was the purpose of not suggesting that they use it as a community/senior center or any big group meeting room. They put it on hold pending our storage tank, the Stoke Group, Wallace Group, excuse me. Yeah, I knew that didn't sound right. The Wallace Group study on the need and the location of the storage tank based on, parking requirements for a community center. So I thought it was kind of odd that, they wanted to use it as a community center, and our concern initially was the parking, and now it's their concern. So, which I applaud them for, waiting on that and not trying to move too fast. At this point, I think, my recommendation is just sit tight and let the town make the next move. As far as one thing I did want to try and get, and tell me if I'm out of line, Pam, is just the consensus. We brought up the option of leasing initially, and then we came up with another idea, and I contacted the committee member, Garrett Reed, on the town side, and he was open for it. Who he talked with or where it went from there, I really don't know. But just for the record, I'd like to get a consensus of this board to see if you would consider selling the land underneath the annex to the
Kevin,
town.
I think we have an item in the executive session where that could be discussed.
What's the approximate date on the Stowe study, on the third tank?
The Wallace Group study?
Wallace.
Y'all are getting me confused now on the,
I like the stove name.
yeah.
90 to 100.
What was it?
Said August.
90
90 to
days,
120
so,
days,
yeah,
yeah.
90 to 120
Supposed to be
days, so.
Some
Either late July or
information.
August.
So if that turns out to be that they recommend a third tank, I do agree with what Mayor said in his memo to you, I think it was, where he said he thought it would be standard real estate policy for the seller to suggest a starting price on the point. I agree with that if the third tank is recommended, and then I would think if we to get the process started, it would seem that the mud board should state the price that they think is fair.
Okay, we gotta be careful about discussing things that are in the closed session, Director Thomas.
Well, that was a public letter that he put out, was it not?
Yes.
Yeah, but we're not supposed to discuss it.
I just want to give a little
We're not
background.
supposed to discuss a public letter?
Right.
I don't think it breached any boundaries, but we can continue on.
Jim, I just wanted, I had, if you recall, I was the one that asked back when that we add to the lease agreement that there not be a senior citizen center there. And my concern was the parking. And what generated that is my wife and I participate in Roanoke, and we've watched that. She's been there 25 years. We've watched that center grow. They have 140 people now once a week that show up at that center for activities, and there is no parking anywhere around here that would support that kind of activity. And so, I think personally, I think it's really wise of the town to back off. I think we need to wait and see what this water tank is going to do. Do we need it? I'm assuming that Wallace Group will let us know. And if it turns out we do need it, then there's going to be very, very limited parking back there. And then I would say it's not our place to decide what the town wants to do in the future. They have to decide. And then I did find the motion, and I got to say this, I did find the motion extremely odd. I went back and listened to the tape, and the motion was that they would wait on us to come back and make a proposal to them to sell the property. I personally believe that once we have all the figures, they must decide what they want to do, and then let's work together to see if we can help them accomplish it. But I don't think the onus is on us. I think it's on them.
Okay,
That's my update.
Director Carr, am I to understand at this point, your update, the discussion is that this annex committee is dead?
It's dead or in a holding pattern.
Okay, all right. I think it's dead, but all right, we'll call it a holding pattern. So, okay. If there's no other further comments, can we move on to the general manager's report? We do have a,
Just one thing,
Sure.
I don't have any problem in saying that we don't need to meet or, just killing the committee, if that's what you're indicating.
that's what it sounds to me
Okay.
like.
Is it out of line, Pam, to?
Just one piece.
I think the
if we need
council
to
killed it
continue
at their meeting. Am I not correct, Jim, Director Thomas? At the council meeting, they in essence killed.
They voted not to take any further action until the
Well, there's no
water
point in
study's
having it.
completed. So I think, Kevin, it's on a 4-month hold at least.
Okay.
So there's no further need for the committee to get together. How's that?
Good. Just wanted to make
Okay.
sure.
General Manager's monthly report. We have a strange request, first time I've run into it, where we had a request for somebody to speak on a General Manager's report. Mr. Rose wishes to speak on water consumption. We should start with that. I hope it's something different.
Bill Rose, 219 Inverness, while I was reviewing your packet, I've been watching the water use or water consumption, water sales. And if you take a look at page 199 in your packet, if you want to spin to it, there's a chart there. Chance to get there.
Yep.
Okay. Basically, what I noticed is that this calendar year, your water billed is down 46,550,000 gallons. You had budgeted an increase, I think, watching a budget tape, planned an increase of like 3.2% revenue increase year over year. I didn't factor that increase into the equation, but based 2014 to 2015, those 3 months, in that shortage of water sales equates to a sewer revenue shortage of $116,000. $116,000 shortage. I wanted to remind you that if you were operating under winter averaging, you would not have that shortage right now, because you would determine the amount of volume, and it would go straight across the entire year. So, just an advantage that I couldn't miss. And
Thank you,
I-
Mr.
and
Rose.
I- my concern, if I was sitting at the board, was May, it's awful wet out there, and I'm kind of looking at another flat line from April across on water use. Perhaps not, but anyway,
Well, if you,
thank you.
you know,
Yeah.
if you look at the water usage, October versus 2014, I mean, we're +8,
Yeah.
+10 in November, +15, then we went down 3, and then +1, down about 24, and then down 20. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
the
very
bulk-
first
the
part of
water-
the fiscal year was good.
Yeah, the water usage, you know, historically has been from June to maybe September, October.
Yeah.
So to say that, you know, we didn't budget or, you know.
No, I'm not questioning your
Yeah.
budget. I'm not,
Okay.
I'm just saying that as Mother Nature has provided
Yeah,
a wet
well,
spring, there's an
Well,
impact.
the lakes, you know, there's a point that you overkill though, on the rain.
Well, it may
Exactly.
not
I
rain
only
again
need
the
an
rest
inch
of
a
the
week.
year.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
I might want to add, years ago, Jim Hayes and I worked on it, and we found that basically the first 8 months of the calendar year, we use 50% of our water, and the other 50% are in the summer months
From
during
July,
the 4
August,
months.
September. Yeah.
But about once every 8 years, we have what we call a wet year. And that's why we have a rating day fund to fund operations if we still have capital, you know, certain costs go down, like the cost of purchase of Fort Worth water goes down at the same time if you're not buying as much. But that's what the fund is there for. There are periods where, just ask somebody out in PK who put their docks in and locked them down about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and now they're underwater. I mean, they're only 5 feet from being normal out there, and which is, I think it's been up, the lake now has come up 14 feet. Now, who could have forecast that?
No, I agree with the forecast, and I think I recall back when we had that real wet year, that, everybody's water use was going down, and ultimately it came to the mud. The mud said, you guys, you have fixed costs you have to cover. Let's be realistic. And so you had to raise rates. But it's perfectly understandable when you've got that problem and you have to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Jennifer, we're back to the general manager's report.
Okay, I added this month an update, project status update, because we have so many projects going on right now. So I wanted to give y'all a little update on each one of those. And then at Director Thomas's request, We had been working on a comparison of effluent rates with other entities, so I'll get with that, and then I'll kind of back up and let you all ask any questions you have about the usual stuff, the operations reports. But first, starting with the capital projects, we have the Sabre sewer line relocation that's going on, Sabre building. And for that project, the new sewer line installation is already complete. The staff is working on testing the installation, and so far it looks like everything's fine. And have you all switched yet, or you're still working? They're still looking to get that switched over to the new line, to switch over to the new line possibly next week. On Campus Circle.
Jennifer, can I ask you a quick question about that?
Sure.
They've torn out a huge parking lot over there, and they look like they're doing all kinds of stuff around that building. Is it the sewer line that's causing this, or are they getting that building ready for something else?
No, they're doing all kinds of rehabilitations to that building, including building a parking garage. And that was the reason our sewer line needed to be relocated, was running through what's going to be the middle of their new parking garage.
Add an extra parking garage, okay.
Yes. Number 7, Campus Circle. We're in the process of replacing a water line over there. This was a budget amendment item. Raymar Construction is exposing all the utilities in the area, and we're coordinating with Cassidy Turley, that's the management company, to make sure that everything goes smoothly. And we hope to be done with that project in the next 2 weeks. But that was a water line that was in very bad disrepair, and we had to move that up in the priority list to get that repaired. We've been working on valve replacements, and right now they're replacing some valves between the Medical Plaza and Homewood Suites. We've had some issues with shutting these valve downs for Homewood Suites so that they can make their new connection to our line. And so this is what we're considering a proactive replacement on those valves. They wouldn't shut the water system down properly. We kind of moved that up in priority on the valve replacement list. We are waiting on a price from Raymar to continue with the valve projects. There's some piping that's going to need to be replaced with the valve replacement project. But it's in a limited area on the property line of the hotel and the Medical Plaza, so it's kind of taken some work and coordination. Next project is the Solana water line relocation. Staff has made our comments on the preliminary plans. We've sent them to the Wallace Group. He was actually in today. They have completed their review. We are still waiting for the contract documents from the engineers. I talked with Steve Leonard today. They're aware of that. He said they had thought that they would have had them to us about 3 weeks ago. So he is on the engineer to get those contract documents to them. So the engineer will have to review those as well, probably legal too, because it is a contract document. We would expect to get those by the end of this week. Today, we did receive the check from the developer reimbursing us for the legal fees. The check was for $84,062. Yeah, $84,062. We did receive that reimbursement check today.
Cents?
No sense.
No sense. And so we're moving along on the Solana Waterline relocation project. The lift station number 2 project, Raymar is working on that right now. They've just got started on that at the end of last week, but it is underway. And the final thing that I want to talk to you about it's on my capital projects update, but it's because it's related to the wastewater treatment plant. And that is not really a capital project, but the groundbreaking ceremony on Friday. I just wanted to real quickly kind of go through what the program's going to be. we were asking everyone to park at Harmony Park. You can start getting there at 1:30 in the afternoon. We're going to have a shuttle bus that shuttles folks back to the wastewater plant. We have an area, we will have an area kind of roped off. I will give a very, very brief welcoming speech. Councilman Jim Perro agreed to give an invocation for us. Director Jim Thomas will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I will then give a few opening remarks, and we will then have the groundbreaking, and that's kind of a photo opportunity. We will then have Director or Vice President Jim Hayes is going to give a few closing remarks.
Very few.
At that point, we will all then get on shuttles and go back to Harmony Park, where this is all, of course, pending no more rain. I'll get to the rain, the plan B if there is rain, but we're going to hope for the best. We'll all go back to Harmony Park at the pavilion, where we will have cake and punch and just some fellowship for a little while. We will be sending out a notice on an e-blast and every way we can think of if it does look like we're going to be drowned out. And we will be moving everything here to the boardroom in case of rain. We will not be actually breaking the ground in here, but we may just do some sort of a photo op if that's all we can do. But this is one of those times that, as much as I prayed for rain, I've kind of stopped a while back anyway, but with all the flooding. But let's all really hope that we don't have any rain Friday so we can have a nice groundbreaking. So that's all on the projects. On the wastewater plant project, we are having the pre-construction meeting on June the 3rd with the contractors here, and they will the notice to proceed will be presented to them at the pre-construction meeting. I had provided to you all in your packet some comparison of some cities with their effluent rates, and as a handout, I've provided some others. If you all have any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer those questions or any other questions on the manager's report you may have.
Jennifer, on those valves up there by the Trauma Club Medical Center, is it a question they weren't closing 100%, or what was the issue with them?
Yeah, the Homewood Suites had to do a tie-in there, and it took us a lot longer, and we had to move down and actually isolate a lot more valves than what we should have because some of them were not closing properly.
Okay, yeah, is it a matter of age or?
Probably age. A lot of that, originally
I got
where
you,
the
260.
Medical Plaza was in Homewood Suites, it was actually platted for a residential community originally, and the infrastructure was put in at that time. They just never went forward,
Yeah.
I guess, building. So that stuff's been in there quite a long time.
Okay, and the next thing, it has to do with the Solana line relocation. Are we comfortable that we're meeting all the timeframes that are in the agreement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Staff met last week, and we went over all of the tickler points in the contract, and we're watching those very closely.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer, I want to make a statement about the flood. I asked for this because we haven't looked at this forever, trying to figure out, are we charging a fair price for this stuff or not? If you go back and look at the total water billed last year of 864 million gallons, it just cut it to 40-something%. Just say that we only get 400 million of it out as affluent. If that were the case, if our rates were closer to Fort Worth, which is in fact similar situation we're in, it's $160,000 a year in additional revenue. I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table, guys, at 70 cents a 1,000 gallons. We're giving it away.
Well, I've had a long conversation with Buster Fischero with Fort Worth about that, and they are just now starting their effluent sales. and they're requiring a lot of infrastructure to be put in the ground, and they're paying for some of that through those rates. They are requiring some of the industries and the golf courses that want to purchase effluent. They're also installing, agreeing to pay for some of that as well.
I said Fort Worth. I meant to say San Antonio. Excuse me.
Okay, sorry.
Excuse me. I quoted wrong. San Antonio has got all the infrastructure in place. They charge $1.18 per thousand. Basically, same situation we're in. We charge $70 per thousand. If our rates were closer to this, I used just a quick math of $1.10 per thousand, somewhere in the neighborhood of $160,000 of additional revenue every year. That's a lot of money, guys.
Any other comments?
That's all right.
Our 70 cents does look pretty low.
Well, I think you have to look at something where if, in the agreement, maybe we should have something in there as a qualifier contingency that if we have capital cost or some other costs in producing the effluent, or providing the effluent is a better way to say it, that we have some type of cost adjustment. The term, as you said, is for quite a few years. And maybe when this agreement comes back, maybe that's something we should we'll consider.
Okay, well, Neil, if I recall, we didn't agree to, we put it on hold for 2 months.
2 months.
And my point is this, if in the original agreement, I can't remember the exact figures, but we were signing up for 2019 at minimal increases when we need to be charging about 40 more cents right now today. So I think we need to be talking with them in a more negotiating factor as to what the rate really should be, and I personally believe it should be significantly higher than 70 cents.
But, okay, Jim, I think maybe we should have this, we should try to start looking at it and say, okay, what's the cost of providing the effluent, and is 70 cents too low? And then come up with a number that we think is in the appropriate number for selling the effluent. Because honestly, if they don't take the effluent, they have to buy
Real water.
Real water, and the real water is a lot more expensive.
I agree. And Neil, the whole thing that drove this was, I've been around here a long time, and I don't ever remember us evaluating the cost of effluents. We've been selling it to them at this rate forever. And
Well,
and so
I think the last contract that, I don't know who negotiated it because it was before I came here, but it was signed by the previous general manager, and it allowed for, I believe, a 5-cent increase each year. Was that right, Renee? Yeah, because I think it was like 60 cents, and then it went to 65, and when I came to work here, it was 70, and now it's 75. I know it's 5 cents more than, it wasn't every year, but like every 2 years or something, and it was in the contract itself. I agree, and I do want to say that I have asked everyone that I know, and every manager I know, and the fact of the matter is there isn't an AWWA book set yet or rate setting on how to price effluent. And that is a new one. I mean, it's not to us, and that's what's so strange, that we've had it so long, we don't think of it as something new, but all of the other entities that haven't been reclaiming wastewater, this is a new concept. And so there's really nothing set on how you should look at that. I like to look at the savings that it gives to our customers, all of the customers, in that we're not having to build additional infrastructure for all those millions of gallons that we're selling them of effluent that would be potable water. That's going to take a lot of infrastructure to be able to meet those needs. If we're not selling the effluent to them, we don't have enough potable water right now to switch it over to potable. If you look at the amount of effluent that they purchase annually.
But Jennifer, please don't misunderstand where I'm coming from. I have no desire to stick it to the country club, but there's no way in the world they're going to walk away from, let me make this up, from $1 a thousand versus $2.50 a thousand. That makes no sense whatsoever. And I just think, you know, that, you know, look, I don't know how Robert did this in the past, but I know that we kind of just took whatever he came to us with. We didn't sit back and do any analysis on it. And I think this data's starting to show that our base price is too low.
Why don't you guys add it to your rate study? Your little rate committee that you got going on there.
Well, I don't know that these funds are gonna affect what you charge for water and sewer rates.
I know, but you can research, you know, where the prices is.
Well, she's done that, Kevin. You got it in front of you.
Well, I mean, you're saying it's too low.
Well, we will. Let's talk about this in our next rate study meeting. We'll kind of look at these and talk about it. We have sent the country club now on 2 occasions a contract, I think, and to kind of go over where we are with that. They would like to have the line surveyed, the Lake A line surveyed. Was it A or B that we had the survey for? B. Yeah, we had B, so we're doing A. And they would like to pay for that. So that's kind of where we are with that. We got a proposal from the Wallace Group. I gotta connect with Tim. I was on vacation, then he was on vacation. Now we're both back, and we're going to try to connect on that. And they want to get the to pay to get a survey done and get the actual easement for Lake A into the document. But that was when we sent the contract over. We had a price in there, and we had a way we would increase it over time. But if the board wants to bring that back and take a look at it again, you've already asked that I bring the contract back to you. So we have time as a group to sit down and look at those rates if you'd like to.
What is the freshwater rate? If we're at 70 here, if they had to put some fresh water on the fairways.
Well, it's the tiered rates, which start at $2.50 and go up depending on how much they use.
Volume, they'd be at the maximum pretty fast.
Yeah, they're commercial. They'd pay commercial rates.
Yeah, I would be glad to take a look at the effluent rates.
Good.
See what we think about them.
Okay, we can put it on the next agenda.
Okay, Jennifer, what else?
That's all I have to go over, unless you all have any questions about any of the operational reports.
Any questions further for the general manager?
I just had a quick question about the
Yes, sir.
offices and stuff. Can you just give a 30-second update on what's going on with movement and stuff?
Fortunately, I was on vacation during that time, but yes, we had we have the town manager and the town secretary and Cindy, I'm not sure what her title was, but
Executive secretary.
executive secretary. They have moved down back into the annex building. Mhm. Oh, and the town attorney, yes. Those 4 have vacated the offices in the SVOR hallway and moved back down to the annex building. Some individuals from the Parks Department have moved into what used to be Renee and Terry and Kari's offices there at the end. Renee is now at the in the previous, what was previous the town manager's office. Kari is next to her, and then Terry is next to that. Right now, the 2 offices that are on the end are vacant, but it will be one of the water guys is going to be moving into one of those, and the other will be set up to be the map room at this time. So we've got all those offices moved. We also had the parks and streets moved all of their equipment and things out of the water barn, and we have moved all of our stuff out of the maintenance barn out at the wastewater plant, which is also called the shop. There's different names for it, but we call it the maintenance barn. And we've vacated that, and the parks has that building completely, and now it is, there are no streets or parks in the water barn out there.
So you just consolidated pieces of equipment, so they're
Yes, so it's all one group together in a building.
but we still own the maintenance barn down by the tree. We're just letting the town use it while they pay
Yes.
rent on.
They do pay rent on the maintenance barn.
Okay, thanks.
Jennifer, with all the flips, out of the total offices in the back there, how many are now occupied by town employees?
3. In our building,
Yeah.
3.
The move was a net 1, right?
Yes.
But we gained a lot of square feet, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, I keep walking past the finance and then walk
Which
into the
was all
park,
right.
and, oh, whoops, and have to come back. So I
This
keep,
gives Renee more room to put papers.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no further questions, let's move on and have the fire department report for April.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time. Secretary Treasurer Carr, I apologize. You asked me earlier about some out-of-service equipment. I do have some out-of-service air packs that I did forget about that we are hanging on to for parts. They're not, they're past functionality. They're not upgradable.
Just bought new ones, didn't we?
Yes, sir. We still have some older air packs that we've robbed some parts off of to fix some that we still currently have. But when the new ladder truck comes in, then that will get rid of all those air packs. So we're just hanging on to them for parts. They're just not cost effective to repair because of their age. You see the monthly activity report in front of you. We're up about 4 runs that you'll notice from the previous month. A lot of that has to do with weather activities. Response times, if you noticed response times, the percentage did change. We went from the previous months and kind of trending in the mid-70s for calls under 6 minutes, and then we went to 56%. Due to some weather-related activities, we had numerous back-to-back calls or calls at the same time, and we just had some extended response times just because we was on a previous call. We had to finish up, and then we had to go to another call, so there was some delays. It's like previously, currently, we dispatched on a medical emergency, and before they ever got the truck started, they dispatched a motor vehicle accident, so that's going to be a delayed response there. 2 calls within a
motor
minute.
vehicle on mutual aid or?
No, sir, both calls are in town.
Okay.
So that I went back and looked, and I seen one call that I had kind of a discrepancy on getting out of the shoot time or out the door, and I've addressed that. The other times is we just was working multiple calls basically at the same time for weather-related activities, and it's quicker for us to clear up a run and go to another run than it is to wait for another company to come into town.
We haven't had any water-related calls down at the park, have we?
No, sir.
Water.
No, sir. We're keeping a very close watch on that. I was down there today, and it's just amazing the amount of water that's there. But
So the bodies haven't risen yet then, right?
I haven't seen one yet. So, I mean, you might know a little more about that than, but,
One thing on this report, you still have March below the mutual aid column.
yes, sir. That was a clerical error. I apologize. I did
So the
I did
numbers-
not catch that.
Numbers don't relate to April, they're all March numbers, correct?
No, sir. They are April numbers.
Okay, so you just labeled it.
Yes, there is a clerical error. I didn't catch it. The firefighter that does the monthly report, he missed it, and I trust everything that he does, and I just skim right past it myself. I looked at it, and he explained a few things to me, and I missed it too. That April just kind of blew by, and so I
You can
didn't
talk
catch
to
it.
Renee about, I don't miss too much on these reports.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's all. I believe that's all that I can see on the monthly activity report. Captain Sop submitted to me a volunteer recruitment report. The information that he gathered from Chief Thomas. That we did have a couple of events. The Citizens Fire Academy program. We had 40 staff hours in that at zero cost because we use on-duty personnel for that. And then the guys that was on duty for the Waterfest event. We did have a couple of emails interest for volunteering at the fire department. We replied back, and we have not got any information back from them. So I don't know if they're just not interested or busy or on vacation or what, but we've made the attempt to get back with them.
Okay, anything else?
I have passed around a picture of the ladder truck. That is the colored rendering drawing of the ladder truck. It was I was notified that it should have hit the line this week. I haven't been told that it's officially on the line. That's what it'll look like. The wheels are chrome, though they're not that ashy gray looking color. And then the back end of the truck is not that yellowy looking color. That yellowy piece is actually a lime green on that chevron. That's the only.
T681, or is that just for show?
It's T681 is for truck 681. We're not going to call it a Quint. We're going to call it a truck. And that to the standards that we use under the NEFTA system, the agreement that we have with all the 14 surrounding departments in the NEFTA system that we participate in, because of the length of the ladder, it signifies a truck company, and they do that so that when we go mutual aid, or when a mutual aid company comes to us, if they call it a Quint, then we know it's 75 feet or shorter, and if they call it a truck, then we know that we're getting an aerial device larger than 75 feet, so we can appropriately place that piece of equipment.
And 681 is just a number that designates it as being different from other trucks?
681 is designated for Trophy Club. We have a county numbering system, and that every department in the county has a different number. And anything that has the 68 in front of it, everybody in the county knows that it's coming from Trophy Club.
Director Thomas, you had some
Yeah,
questions?
Donnie, a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
On the mutual aid, it says FY 2015, does that mean fiscal year that started in September?
Yes, sir. We track fiscal year October to September because we believe that it's easier to keep up with the budget impact versus keeping up with calendar year, so numbers are concurrent with budget.
On 219, you've got 10 incoming runs from Roanoke into Trophy Club. How many of these were fire versus EMS?
On 219?
No, page 219
Oh,
of the
okay.
report.
Let me
of the
scroll to that.
report.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
You got a pie chart here that shows Roanoke did 10 calls, but you've got it broken down as to what we do to Roanoke and fire and EMS. I just want to know
Yes,
how
sir.
the 10 broke out.
The 10 broke
I'm
out.
guessing it's probably mostly fire.
Let me get to that. I wrote that down somewhere. Where'd it go? Here it is. It broke down to mutual aid calls. 10 was EMS to Roanoke. 2 of those calls got canceled. 2 calls to Roanoke were fire
Oh,
related.
I'm talking about the 10 calls from Roanoke to us.
Oh, from Roanoke to us. Yes, sir. We did have a fire. We had 2 fires at Roanoke came on, actually. We had a fire over on Salida that was due to power lines arcing that caught a tree and some shrubbery and a fence on fire. It dispatched as a structure fire, so with the information gathered and multiple calls, additional company was started.
So the other 8 were EMS calls?
We had 2 other calls that we were working 2 lightning strikes at the same time. Information given, we started an additional company, and then 3 houses down, we had another lightning strike. So actually, they never made the first lightning strike on Exeter. We sent them to the second dispatched fire. So three calls were fires.
And 7 were EMS?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Scooter Garrish and his wife are friends of my wife, and I continue to tell him how we're subsidizing his EMS department. We did 32 runs over there, of which 24 were EMS.
Yes, sir.
Director Thomas, any further questions?
No, that's all.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Donnie.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate it. We will now move into our closed session. I want to welcome our esteemed council members who we've been sorely missed.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, not just
I'm
council.
sorry, Mayor Pro Tem and council member. You've been sorely missed around here. So we will now convene into our closed session. The time is 7:58. Pam, will you do us a?
I sure will. The board will conduct a closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code annotated Chapter 551, Subchapter D for the
Okay.
following. I'm going to add also a provision that should be in here pursuant to 551.072 regarding real property and to Section 551.071. The district will consult with its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meetings Act, or to seek advice of counsel on legal matters involving pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. A, agreement with THB Construction for security for potential fines due to sewer infiltration caused by negligent construction of sewer line in Water's Edge at Hogan's Glen Phase 3. B, terms of potential lease or property sale with the Town of Trophy Club for use of District Annex building located at 100 Municipal Drive. C, allegations of misuse of property within Trophy Club Fire Department. D, conveyance of water and wastewater infrastructure as requirement of service. E, interlocal agreement with Town of Trophy Club for fire service to properties located within the Town Trophy Club, but outside the district and public improvement district.
Thank you, Pam. Let's take a 5-minute break if we need to. Please, let's try to limit it to 5 minutes. We don't need a lot of conversations on the side in between.
Director Carr's asked if we can go into my office for.
Let's see. This is agenda item
Yeah, you have a,
18,
A,
is it 18A?
yeah.
Okay. 18, you want to read it, or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I make a motion for the general manager, is Miguel back here? Make a motion for the general manager to submit the reimbursement agreement to THB, subject to the approval of TC Mud 1 legal counsel.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Do we have any other motions?
Let's see.
Jim, I've got one.
Okay. Director Thomas.
Pertaining to item 18E, the interlocal agreement with the Town of Trophy Club for fire service to properties within the Town of Trophy Club but outside the district and public improvement district, I make a motion that we use the 2008 fire service agreement drafted for fire services to the PID to also provide fire coverage to other out-of-district properties, and that we direct staff to follow all requirements of that agreement as previously approved by the board and council, and that any future changes to those processes that are set forth in that agreement must be approved through an amendment approved by both the board and town council.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by
Kevin.
Kevin. Is there any more discussion? If not, let's call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Do we have any other motions?
I'd like to make a motion regarding 18B, which is terms of potential lease or property with the sale with Town Trophy Club for the use of District Annex building located at 100 Municipal Drive. Based on the email received by President Moss from Mayor Sanders, it's our understanding that the council tabled this item. It will only have future consideration after the water study is completed. For several months, the district has been diligently working to assist the town at their request to clear up issues that prevent the town from obtaining insurance on the annex building, and we remain willing to work towards an amicable agreement. For now, I make a motion that includes the MUD's willingness to lease or sell the annex building property to the town, but tables that discussion until the council notifies the board of their interest to move forward in some manner and to direct staff and legal to cease all work on this matter.
Second?
We have a motion. We have a second. If there's no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Are there any further motions?
Yes, Mr. President, I also have a motion regarding 18C.
Okay.
I make the motion that the MUD General Manager will notify and consult with the Trophy Club Town Manager regarding allegations of misuse of property of the fire department and report back to the MUD Board with any plan of action by May 28th.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Are there any other motions to come before us tonight?
Well, hopefully the last motion regarding 18D, conveyance of infrastructure. General Manager McKnight Inform the board that the conveyance document for infrastructure located solely in the district has been received from the town, and would like to thank the council for getting this accomplished. Based on the email received by President Moss from Mayor Sanders, it is our understanding that the council took action to recognize that the additional infrastructure for which conveyance was requested but denied jointly serves the district and the town. The council decided it is not necessary to do any additional legal work or research related to this matter. Based on this information, I would like to make the motion to direct the general manager and our legal counsel to notify TCQ of the joint ownership of the property and sewer lines, notify them of the notify them of the direct connection between the water systems, and notify them of the portable water line is under the sanitary control of the town. Additionally, I move that the finance staff maintain the value provided to us by the town staff on the district's assets list, and for the legal counsel to do no additional work or research in this matter except for where noted above.
Second.
Have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. If there are no further motions to be made tonight, item number 20, items for future agenda. Does anybody have any items they wish to bring up? No future agenda items. Item 21, the next regular meeting date is June 16 at 6 p.m. If there's no further discussion,
We have a special meeting on the 20th.
sorry, we have a special meeting on June the 28th at 11 a.m.
May 28th.
I'm sorry.
Yes, at 11 a.m. And don't forget the groundbreaking this Friday, May 22nd at 2 p.m.
Got it, okay. All right, if there are no other announcements, the meeting is now adjourned at 9:40.